Welcome to the Tearing It Up podcast. I'm your host, Taryn. We'll be tearing it up, tearing it down, and tearing it apart, dissecting all things related to those who deviate from the standard. From leaders of their industry to leaders of mediocrity, and maybe a gear review or two thrown in. We shoot the shit and let the conversations flow, so if that's not your style, this may not be for you. Otherwise, listen in. Hope to light a fire in you somehow. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We are now midway through July, which is nuts. Technically, on this date, it's Friday the 12th, so not quite midway there yet. But by the time you hear this, it is definitely midway. And it's just so hard to believe how fast summer freaking goes by. But we're back talking more kind of bike things. And I'm really excited to have Maria on. And again, I put a mental note in my head here to ask you this before we recorded, and I forgot. I don't want to butcher it. So how do you pronounce your last name, Maria?
I pronounce it Boustead.
Boustead.
Kind of
okay,
like I boast.
I love it. Okay, so we have Maria Boustead on of Campo, and I found her through Heather Kelly, who we had on the podcast a few months ago of Heather's Choice, and she just made a note of Maria and said, you should seek out this woman, talk to her. She's amazing and great. And so I did just that. And we're excited to chat with her and learn all about her company, Campo, how it started. She makes bike bags, really cute ones and functional. Fashion and function. It's something we don't get to see a lot of, especially I feel like as women, we talk about this in apparel. We get the fashion, but not always the function. So we're going to dive on in about her company, how it got started, and all things. But first, Maria, will you tell the people where you are at physically right now in the world?
Yeah, and it's a pleasure to be on this podcast. Thanks for having me. Right now, I'm actually in Mexico City. This is my third summer in a row down here. Really love the city. I know it's kind of crazy to leave New York and then go to an even bigger and crazier city for the summer. But for one, I really love the weather down here. Mexico City actually is not that hot. It's like in the low 70s, which is my favorite temperature. New York gets very hot and humid in the summer, and in turn, it makes me just kind of miserable. And so being able to leave the city, go to somewhere super comfortable, I feel like I'm enjoying summer for like the first time in my life. Since coming down here. So that's part of the reason. It's also a very green city. It has such beautiful parks. There's just plants everywhere. I really love that. And it's actually a really fun city to bike in. Mexico City is pretty famous for its pollution and bad air quality. It's made a lot of strides to improve that. And one of the things is really encouraging public transportation and biking instead of driving. And it has a really awesome bike network where on a lot of the main boulevards, they've closed one whole lane to cars or to bikes, from cars to bikes. And they put up like a cement barrier between, so you feel totally protected. It's not like in New York where cars are still just kind of like hanging out in the bike lane. It's very wide, and it also has a really good bike share system, which is what I use while I'm here. So I feel like I kind of get to live my best life outside, biking around, enjoying the weather, checking out the city, hanging out in the parks. It's a really nice summer break for me.
That's amazing. Beautiful. There's quite a few things in there that I just didn't realize. One, that Mexico City has such a temperate temperature in the 70s sounds great to me, because the whole West, probably the whole country is, I think, like heating up right now in a bit of a heat wave. And when I was just in Washington, it was in the 90s. It's still in the 90s here in Tahoe. And for us, Amber and I both being Washington State natives, 90 is like pushing our limit of the heat of what we enjoy. And for me, 70s sounds great right now. It was like 70 something in my house trying to sleep last night, and I was just tossing and turning.
Yeah.
And also that that Mexico City is so green, because I have only been through there twice, and that's just flying out. So I didn't leave the airport. And the first time I arrived, looking at the airport window, it was, it looked like a fog because the air was so hazy. Now this was, 12 years ago or more. So I'm sure a lot has changed, but in my mind, I remember a friend recently of mine went to Mexico City, and she was like super excited about it. I was like, really? Like, I just definitely hadn't read up on it enough to think or know how much like culture and awesomeness and things that were there to be able to appreciate it. So I have turned my ideas around, and it sounds like a place I want to go. I heard the food around there is great too.
The food is amazing. Yeah, for sure. Definitely love that. It's one of my favorite parts. And it's also great, for practicing Spanish. I'm definitely maybe beyond beginner now. Beginner, and intermediate, making progress. I've learned past tense, which was a huge unlock for me to be able to talk to people. But my husband has been studying Spanish for like 15 years. He started coming to the city first for like a week or two every year just for intensive Spanish class. And then he's like, you got to come. And like you, Taryn, the last time I had been here was maybe 15 years ago, roughly. And I just remember just sitting in traffic all the time. I was like, no, I don't want to go there. And he's like, it's not like that. We can bike everywhere. I'm like, biking in Mexico City? Are you crazy? Yeah, that's not my memory at all. And then and I'm like, it's going to be too high. He's like, it's not too high. And then the first time we did it for the summer was 3 years ago. And I remember like the first day I was like, oh my God, I love it here. Just like wonderful weather, all the rest, because it's so temperate all year round, like all the restaurants have huge outdoor patios, or the whole restaurant is an outdoor patio. So you're just like outside all the time. And then that the biking is really fun and easy to do just makes it such a great place to visit.
That sounds amazing. You mentioned the bike share. I imagine, is that literally like you just pick up a bike at a certain place, and then, or is it like between certain people? You have a group of people and you all share a bike. How does the bike share work?
No, it's like if they actually use the same bikes now that are in New York and Chicago and DC. So it's very similar to that. So there's docks everywhere, not over the whole city, but for a really good chunk of it. And so like every 3 blocks, there's a dock that has maybe 15 bikes, and then you can do them. I got an annual pass because it was cheaper than buying 4-week passes, and have been using that almost daily. The first year we were here, they had their original system, which was called Eco BC, and the bikes were super cute. They kind of reminded me of the Pee Wee Herman bikes, like these really cute red cruiser bikes. Oh my God, I love them. But the system was a little wonky, like it didn't always work. And so when we came back, then it switched to this one that I'm very familiar with because it's what I've used in New York and Chicago and other places I've traveled, but it doesn't quite have the same charm as the old ones.
Totally. Are these e-bikes, or are they like the just analog pedal bikes?
These are non-e-bikes, and most of Mexico City is in a valley and it's pretty flat. So I don't feel like I'm missing the E really at all, except for some of the distances are kind of long, but it's not hilly. So it works fine to just have the regular bikes.
I love that. We just recently got that in Truckee. I think last summer was the first summer for it. So there's a few docking stations. They are e-bikes, but again, it's just, we do have quite a few hills around here, but it is, now I don't I've used them in cities before, like in Detroit and in Santa Cruz, but just so few and far between that I don't remember what the cost is. And it seems here it's like $8 for 30 minutes. I'm like, that seems like a lot to do, especially if you're actually going somewhere where there's not a docking station and maybe there's only 1 or 2 there. So then you're really risking it if you go and dock your bike at the lake and then you're going to leave and there is none, especially because our public transportation overall, like even Ubers and Lyfts and things like that aren't really there. So I think that we have a bit of a ways to go to expand on that bike share system, but at least it's there. It's awesome. It's a great way for visitors to get around, and especially so for Mexico City, somewhere where you're flying to and not having to pack a bike and you're there all summer. So that sounds like an amazing, awesome thing. And just to be able to truly pedal too. You don't have to worry about not charging your bike.
Yeah, it is nice. I've done a lot of travel this year so far. And so I've tried the bike share systems in Paris, Turin, Berlin, and now Mexico City. Wow. And I always say the one unifying thing is how cheap they all are. I think that is something that's a problem in public transportation too. Like here, taking the subway which is super fast and comes like every 3 minutes. It costs like 7 cents, you know?
Wow.
So it gets to that like no brainer level. And I feel like with the bike share, it also needs to be that way.
Mm-hmm.
In New York, it is similar to that. Like they just increased the price of the e-bikes. And so if you do use it for the full 30, 45 minutes, it is like $8 to $10. And then you're like, why did I just do this? You know, it was fun, but I could have taken the subway and done it the same trip for a lot less. And, you know, to really encourage people to be using the bikes and public transportation, I do think it really needs to be at that no-brainer level, you know, where it's like, well, I can ride a bike for the, you know, $20 for this whole time I'm here, you know, as much as I want. And then it's like, why wouldn't I then, you know, and they're everywhere and it feels safe, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm curious. So we've talked about New York. Obviously that is where you live when you are not visiting Mexico City. Are you from the East Coast originally, like born and raised New Yorker?
No, I'm from the Chicago area. So I do feel like I'm still very Midwestern in my demeanor, but now I've got like this New York edge, which expresses itself with me like shouting at random people. Like, hey you, hey lady, get out of the way, like that kind of thing. Which whenever I do that back at home, you know, people are like, whoa. I'm like, sorry, that's just New York. That's what you do. You just yell at people all the time.
That's hilarious, like that New York edge. Yeah.
Totally.
How long have you been in New York?
We moved there in 2015, so it's been about 9 years now.
Awesome. Very cool.
And I still don't, well, maybe, I think going through COVID in the city helped me feel more like a New Yorker, but I still feel like I get lost all the time. You know, a lot of those things, I don't know when or if that all goes away, you know, but there's just so much going on in the city that there's always just so much to discover and experience. I think that's part of the draw for people, is it never gets old like it can, you know?
Yeah, there's always something changing, popping up. I've never been to such a big city. I've spent any time in it. I would love to experience it, but then it also sounds like overwhelming at times.
It's really overwhelming. And you were like, I feel like I got to get out of here, you know? And where we live is at the top of Manhattan. And fortunately, the Empire State Trail goes through there. So that's a trail that you can take from like New York City all the way up to Canada, and then from Albany all the way west to Buffalo. And a lot of it is on trail, which is really nice, you know, so we'll just like head out of town on our bikes. We have e-bikes because it does start to get hilly, and get out of the city. But then honestly, like, you know, 4 or 5 days away, I'm like, I kind of miss the energy.
Yeah.
It's one of those weird things.
Well, when you're used to a certain environment, I mean, I'm sorry, what was that, Amber?
The heart in two places thing.
Oh yeah, yeah, totally, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, okay, we're talking about bikes. We obviously know we all here love biking. Now, can you explain to people like Campo what exactly your bike bags are? And we'll get into like how you started it in the first place, but just first off, kind of an introduction to Campo and what your brand is, and then we'll dive deeper into how it all came about.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so Campo, we do bags that help you carry what you need on and off your bike with style and ease. So a big part of our bags is this kind of transition element where they go onto your bikes, attached securely, but then they can convert into a normal shoulder bag, backpack, whatever, off the bikes. And we have, not all the bags are as convertible because it doesn't always make sense, but we have from small to large. Our smallest is like a phone frame bag. We have a stem bag, some handlebar bags, a bike basket that's fabric, all the way then to trunk bags and pannier bags. We have a grocery shopper that's more like a tote, and then a backpack pannier, which is an awesome bag, just totally packed full of cool features.
I love it. And I have seen...
And we're really well known for the print. I feel like there's a lot more to the bags than the prints, but that's usually what people notice first is just like the fun colors and patterns.
Well, that's a great way to get, I mean, just brand recognition is a huge thing. So to stand out from the rest and just be able to see a colorful design and people to be like, oh, that's a Po Campo. I mean, that's how I always talk about the brand Wild Rye, the women's mountain bike apparel, is like, I can spot a pair of their shorts because they now just have this recognizable design and patterns and colors. And so I think that's just such a great way, again, to stand out as a brand. It's not a question of like, oh, is that Patagonia or the North Face? It's like a neutral color, you know, like you just know, like, oh, cool, look at that bike bag there. That's definitely a Po Campo. And so, especially in these stages where right now there's not a, you know, from what I find, not a lot that stand out. Again, it's just kind of neutral, basic colors, all about the function. And, you know, you have like hardcore bike packer or like think messenger hustle and bustling person through the big city. So I think that your stuff brings a lot of fun to, hey, no, I'm just like biking to town or biking to the farmer's market or whatever, especially around here in Tahoe, like all the things that we have going on in the summer, like music in the park. We have Truckee Thursdays where every Thursday it's like the whole main street downtown becomes basically like a farmer's market. And yeah, you want to go do those things, but you're also hanging out with friends for a few hours. So you want to have something cute to be walking into the restaurants with or just hanging out with. So yeah, I love the style of your bags.
Thank you. Yeah, and actually those two kind of polarities, the very, well, Po Campo just celebrated its 15th year anniversary actually on July 9th. So that's a huge milestone. So I've been kind of in a nostalgic, reflective mood this week. But you asked how I started the company. It was like many entrepreneurs, wanted something that I couldn't find, so I made it myself. My background is industrial design, so product design. And at the time, I was working at like a packaging agency. So it was a lot of branding. The things we were packaging were liquids. So think about like vodka, laundry detergent. So it was like you really depend on the bottle to like tell you everything about that product, you know, because the product itself doesn't really, you know, vodka is vodka, you know, it's all clear. So it was a really cool job because it was like part very sculptural, you know, like if the brand wanted to exude whatever gentle versus, you know, hardcore cleaning for laundry detergent, those would be very different bottle shapes, you know. So it was really fun that way. And then like right side, left side of the brain, it was also like you would want it to like go down the filling line invisible to the filling line so they could like just switch out this bottle. So I had a lot of like engineering, you know, like it needed to have whatever. Okay. So anyway, super fun. Yeah. And I had a lot of brand component to it as well. So I did learn about branding and how like design language could help bring brand to life. And okay, so I was biking to work all the time and I wanted this bag because I loved biking, but I wanted a bag that I could use as like my normal bag throughout the day. Mm-hmm. So like going into the office, going to get lunch with someone, going to like a client meeting or whatever. And with a backpack, you got all sweaty. Your normal like shoulder bag would just like fall down your arm. Very distracting. And then the bags that would attach to bike either came from bike packing or like Ortlieb or whatever, where it's like, it's an awesome product. And yes, you can take it off the bike, but not really. Like I'm not, you know, it's like luggage then, you know? Mm-hmm. And why can't it be both? Like it doesn't seem like that hard of a design challenge to solve. And really wanting it to be like when it's on the bike, it's totally a bike bag. It's secure, it's waterproof, all of that. And then when it's off the bike, you would never guess that it could go on a bike, like really wanting something that could have that versatility and stand up to that high level of transformation, I guess. And then thinking about the market, this was 15 years ago. And obviously it's still kind of the same because of what you just said, Taryn. Like it felt like it was either bike stuff was super performance, you know, like the Lycra crowd, everything very lightweight, blah, or it had like this really gnarly urban grittiness to it, like chrome, you know? And I was like, Neither of those things is really summing it up for me. Like, this whole thing is not for me about speed. It is something, it definitely has like fitness, staying healthy and active, but more like just being able to do it every day and not like trying to like beat some personal record every day, and then the urban grittiness, I was like, no, I remember like there was this one ad campaign that was like showing off somebody's like scabby elbows and knees because they had gotten like hit by a car, and I'm like, that does not make me want to ride my bike.
Yeah.
And like for me it is the fitness, feeling healthy, definitely like in the morning, just that like 20-30 minutes of movement to like start my day, and then after work to kind of like decompress from that busy work day. It has to do a little bit with adventure, like seeing different parts of your city, taking those kind of like scenic detours. Oh, I want to like go over here this way, take this different route home, like those little bits of the daily adventure. That kind of I don't know, feel goodness with knowing that you're like leading more of a sustainable lifestyle, that like this is a good decision for yourself and for the planet,
Yes.
And for those things, and also kind of smart, like you're totally saving money too,
Yeah.
And so like for those, like all those things, like I didn't see those values reflected in the kind of the urban gritty stuff or in the sporty performance stuff. And like just seeing how more and more people were biking, I was like, you know what, we need some more crossover product to make it easier to integrate biking into your life. And we need a brand that is not those two things, And so we wanted Campo to be kind of like more celebrating the joy of this like sustainable lifestyle. And that's where the fun patterns came about, like, because biking is so fun, like, and then why are all the bike bags just so like black and boring, you're like major having some really fun where you look at it and just kind of like makes you happy. Like I feel like that really is mirroring the kind of bike feeling, at least it is for me. And then all the little design details we're able to integrate into the products to be able to do that kind of cool transformation where it attaches to the bike in a really intuitive, easy way. Everything is really easy to take on and off, because if you're on your bike all the time, you don't want to be like, got to unzip this, pull this out, put this away, like it's a long multi-stage process, which a lot of our competitors have. We want it to just be like on and off, and that it can be this great bag then off the bike too, where you can use the same bag even on days that you don't bike. That's kind of like my test, so you don't have your bike bags and your non-bike bags, but just kind of like this one bag for your whole life.
That is awesome. Something I'm on the never-ending search for, because I do so many different things. I tell you, I have a million bags and I'll find one. I'm like, okay, this is the one. But then there's one little thing, like it doesn't fit, like for biking. And I mean, granted, I don't have a bike right now that is great for transportation with racks and stuff like that anyways, but that is the next thing on my list. You all have heard me talk about getting a gravel bike. Hopefully, I keep saying that, is very soon. But so then I do have a bag like that I can use every day. And again, like you just said, not even when I'm off the bike. So I can be using this as my kind of daily bag to and from work without having to like switch bags for biking or not biking. Like, oh, am I driving? Because then I'm constantly leaving something important in said bag. Like, oh, great, wallet's in the other bag today. Like, or I left my keys, I didn't drive. Now I don't have keys to work or whatever. Like, shoot. So, it's a lofty goal, but I think that you're on the way of doing it. Like I said, like just the design of it, style. And you mentioned them being waterproof, because that was my question when I first looked up Campo. Just my very first visit to the website was just a quick kind of peruse. I didn't research anything, but it's like, oh, these are super cute. But I wonder if they are waterproof, because it's not that it rains a lot here in Tahoe anyways, during the times that I would be biking. But again, being a native Northwesterner, I'm just like, it could rain anytime, any second. Like, everything has to be waterproof if I'm going outdoors. So they are all of them, or do you just have certain bags that are waterproof?
Well, all the fabrics are coated, and then all the zippers have some kind of protection, either a rain flap or it's a weatherproof zipper. Our largest bag, the Bedford, has a laptop compartment. So with that, we added an extra rain cover just for, because I know I'll be like riding home, okay, it's normal rain, and then you get like this insane downpour and you're like, oh, I got my computer in here. So just an extra like layer of resistance. Now, can you throw the bag in the lake and will everything stay dry? No. You can do that with an Ortlieb bag. So like Ortlieb, that waterproof level where yes, you can submerge it and everything inside says dry. Okay, we don't have that level, but we don't need that kind of level. And as we think about developing or designing, there's always trade-offs. And like with that level, one of the main things you have to give up is pockets. And for us and our customers, pockets are so important. That is really one of the biggest differentiators between us and a lot of the common bike bags is just our bags have a lot of pockets and our customers like pockets to keep everything organized. It's definitely something we hear all the time. And knowing that the bags can stand up to rain, even heavy showers, but they don't. But in lieu of the submerging, we're able to offer this other benefit that people can appreciate and use every day. To us, that it's like a worthwhile trade-off. And we feel good about it. Like I ride with my bags in the rain and everything's fine. So I feel like it's a good call for us.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that needing the submerged type of waterproofing is really specific kind. I mean, I definitely want a waterproofing and because even though it doesn't rain much here in Tahoe, we can still get these like mountain storms that out of nowhere, it's like, here's a quick downpour. And so that can catch you when you're out riding your bike. And often my computer is with me. So sorry, we just lost Amber. So I was like, wait, what happened to her screen? But she'll pop back on here. But yeah, so often I have my computer with me. So I'm like, I definitely need something to at least protect whilst riding in the rain. But submerging, that is a different kind of whole bike trip for me anyways.
Like if you're doing a big bike packing trip and you might be like walking your bike through a stream or something, or you're out camping, then totally I can see it, but that's not really what we're focusing on. Not now as the company has evolved and matured, we definitely have moved beyond just commuting, and I would say the majority of our customers use the bags more for kind of recreation, which to us means like maybe up to like a day long or like a little bike touring, maybe less so with camping and more like staying at hotels or something in between, and so the bags have evolved a little bit. So, we have kind of the good commuter bags, but now we have a fuller range just for all those different types of riding that our customers do. But so we do feel good about the product range.
Good. I love it. So you're biking to work, this idea comes about. How on earth did you go about like actually creating the first bag? Did you just start designing it yourself and making it and kind of Frankensteining something together as a prototype? Or did you know somebody who was like, here, let me throw something together for you?
Yeah, I got together with a good friend who's also a designer with this idea, and we worked together. And so I know I'm kind of more of a big picture thinker. I say I paint with a big brush, and she's much more detailed. So I thought we would be a good combination. So I could work more on like the vision and the marketing and kind of like the vibe. And then she would kind of detail out the product. The first bags we designed, we had two. We had a handlebar bag, which was going to be like the going out bag, so you're going out either to dinner, to meet up with some friends, and you really just kind of need your essentials. And then we had a bigger bag that was like a trunk bag. It was super cute. It's called the Armitage Satchel, if anybody wants to look it up. And it's would sit on top of the rear rack. It wasn't quite big enough for a laptop, but this was kind of, remember, this was 2008, 2009. People weren't working remotely like they are now. So taking your laptop everywhere was not such a big thing as it is now. Anyway, it was a very handsome bag. So we started off with those two, thinking like that would kind of cover off those two main use cases. And the first prototypes we made were totally like rough and ready. We just found fabric, foam, buckles from the hardware store, stapled it together. We did some very basic like user testing, because we didn't want to use the normal bike hardware. Like we really wanted it to feel like a bag. And then it's like, well, people even know how to attach this if it's not like, here's these two big hooks,
Right.
So with our rough models, we did some user testing, just be like, how would you attach this, and kind of refined it from there. We knew that we didn't want to be the manufacturer. I think, we just didn't want to be the manufacturer. That's not like me sitting at a sewing machine and sewing the same thing day in and day out. Does not sound like something I would be good at. I'm usually like, I love getting something done and then I want to move on to the next thing. Other people have that skill, that more kind of tradesman skill. And so we did look for partners to help us. It was kind of a crazy story. So I was like, I know we're in Chicago. I know that there are sewer here's, but looking on Google, all we could find were kind of like just super basic, like tote bags that you would take to the grocery store. And our designs were definitely way more complicated. And just one of those weird, like I talked to a friend who used to do bags for a brand called Fossil. And I was like, could you help us? And she's a Korean American. And she's like, I bet there's something in the ethnic community. She asked her mom, who suggested talking to the mechanic. Who's recommended somebody from their church who used to make. Oh my gosh, I
love it.
And this couple used to make luggage for Toomey, the good luggage brand, back when they used to sew some bags in the States. And it was such a blessing to meet this couple because they really helped us refine the product design and make some really good prototypes that we were able to take to stores to get some initial orders. And then they referred us to another small factory owned by a Korean American woman who made our first production for the first couple of years. So it was like definitely kind of figuring that piece out took a lot longer than we had anticipated, just because it was very circuitous. And then like sourcing all the fabrics and bits and bobs for a bag, like each of the bags have like 30 little thingies in it that you don't see, just like interior structural elements or a stiffening that we put behind one of the snaps. So it's, just like all these little details that make it easy to use. But then with starting out from scratch, we were in charge of sourcing, finding all those materials ourselves. So much of production has moved overseas for raw materials as well, so it was like, where can we find this right kind of fabric, this right kind of thing where you don't have to buy like thousands and thousands of it so we can just get started and test it. It was a very interesting, like looking back now, like I said, I'm kind of in a nostalgic mood this week, but like finding like what could we find that was made in the US. So for example, there was a Velcro factory, or not Velcro brand, but like Hook and Loop, in Chicago, and so I got to like go there and like, oh wow, look at this, who knew that was there, but then other stuff you just couldn't find, or if you found it, it was so much more expensive that you're like, wow, if we use this one part, it's going to add $50 to the bag, not worth it, so it was a really interesting experience to try to figure that out.
I love it. This is why I love talking to product-based businesses, because as the consumer, you get the product and instantly, obviously, we go through our own personal testing and like, oh, this function doesn't work the way I want it to, or it's not smooth, or it works great, and it's just like simple and easy and blah, blah, blah. But you're only thinking about the parts that you really need, want, and use, and not every component. So mentioning like, some of these bags have like 30 different little tiny things in there that you have to source. That's, again, something as the consumer, you're not thinking about all these little bits and pieces that go into it. So I find it so interesting talking to those of you behind the scenes and hearing like, yeah, just to get this button, like we have to go through all of this, and just the roundabout kind of story of how you found that couple, of being able to find them through talking to people in your community and having this kind of chain connection is super cool. Because it's so hard. A lot of people, obviously, they just hear from someone else or look something up and take a shot in the dark for a factory overseas, but they have no idea really what the product they're going to receive might end up like, or how communication will be or anything. So it just is, I commend product-based businesses so much because it takes so much work to get to the point of production. And then still, that's just the prototypes, right? Or the samples, the testing, and then to get them made in a bigger quantity and make any changes to them, it's just so many steps.
It is. Yeah, and I remember our first production run for those 2 bags. We made 100 of each in 3 colors, so kind of like 35 of each, let's say. And I remember like my maiden voyage, I had my bags on my bike going down, and the rear rack one fell off. I was like, oh my God. Oh no.
Yeah, like, is this just a snafu for me, or is this like a functionality problem with every bag?
Yeah, and like the front handlebar bag was just closed with magnets because we wanted it like, we always have this scenario where you're like, you're at a stoplight, light's about to change, you want to like get something really fast out of your bag. Having magnets to like boom, 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 boom. Okay, what we found out then was like going over lots of bumps, it would always just like happen. Oh my gosh. Okay, so thank God we only made 100. And even then it felt like we have 100, But whenever I do talk with somebody like getting started and they're like, oh, I need to make 1,000 to get the right price, I'm like, don't do it.
Yeah.
Totally recommend like just losing money on the first 100 because there's going to be things that are wrong. Like it's, we have a much more robust and rigorous testing process now to try to like iron out those things, but little things always continue to pop up, where you're like, oh, somebody will be like, I use it like, and you're like, oh yes, okay, nobody that we talk to use it that way, but that totally makes sense, and I can see, so it is hard, but we fix those problems with the next production run, and kept growing it from there.
Well, and as we always say, it's like you can't make everyone happy. So, of course, there's going to be things that come up that you're like, yeah, never thought about that. The people that we tested with, like, that never had that problem. And then you have to weigh, like, okay, well, but is this something worth the change that will make a big difference for everybody that isn't too hard to add? Or is it a little too much change in the overall product that now someone else is just going to be unhappy with it? Weighing those that kind of feedback has got to be pretty difficult too. Or like, do we just create a whole new thing? Like, how do we find out if this is a problem for a lot of people, or is this a one-off case?
Totally. And as you can expect, like people love to share their opinions,
Yes.
And it is all the times, a lot of times you listen to it all, but you're like, you know what, you're not our target customer. So I'm going to smile and nod, but not for you anyway, but then sometimes it is totally like our target customer and you're like, that really makes sense. And I really like having that good dialogue with our customer. I think this is one of the reasons why it's nice to have some women-owned brands. And I know you guys kind of prioritize that in your things just because of the level of like honest communication we can have that I don't think other brands would get. And I'm just going to do 2 examples or one maybe. But, okay, I'm pretty small chested and my co-founder was also, and we were at like a fair or something and this woman comes up and she's like, I love your bags, but look, and she was very large chested and the shoulder strap was way too small. Like it was cutting in between the breasts. I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, And then we were like, okay, now we have this, like we had some brand ambassadors time, kind of all different shapes and sizes of women. And we were like, can you measure like what your dream strap length would be? And then we learned that we need to, and this is like from this time, which was a long time ago, like one of our holy like things now that we never touch, the strap needs to extend from 32 inches to 60 inches, and like we have to do that to be able to kind of fit the range of body sizes. And this is something for a bag. Like it's one thing if we're making clothes, we're obviously, but even for bags, it's a big deal. Another one was with a rear rack, the trunk bag. We had one style that went up really high, and one woman, she was like, I love this bag, but my butt bumps against it and it just makes me feel like I have a big butt and it makes me feel bad. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so glad you told me that, because obviously we don't want anybody to feel that way. So now when we do our trunk bags, even the ones that go higher, the top is soft, so even if it was like kind of bump up against it, it's not like, oh, I'm not supposed to be touching it, something's wrong with me. I mean, that's unfortunate that women often feel like if something's wrong, it's a problem with their own bodies or themselves. But we just like being able to have that kind of open dialogue where women feel comfortable telling us this is where this is not working for me, and then we're able to adjust it to help with that. And whenever something like that comes up, I'm like, I'm so glad we're here, because if it was just some random bike brand, usually, let's be real, most bike stuff is run by guys. You would be like, I'm not gonna go up to this guy Jake and tell him that my boobs look weird with this strap, So I think it's just so, like, even for these little details, how important it is to have women running companies and brands, just so that we can make sure the product really is fitting everybody that we can.
Yeah, that's a really great point. For sure. I think that there's just generally more something that's people feel more comfortable talking to women about those problems. Even a man, I think, feels more comfortable going to a woman about like being able to talk about a problem rather than to a man and saying like, hey, this isn't working. Like, obviously there's situations for everything, but I just think that, like I said, in general, people find it a little bit easier to approach women with issues, and to be able to expect like any kind of feedback and like not just like being shut down or something. Like, they know that, they have a better chance of being heard, I guess, is my take on it anyways. And so something that I guess I have thought of, maybe I don't put too much thought into it at the moment, but you're totally right, where there's one thing about leaving a review on a brand's website, but being able to actually like think that they're listening and hearing. And I wouldn't think, especially bigger brands, like for instance, I have a Camelback bladder, that was fine. I have a Decline hip pack, and I got to the point that like that the waist belt there's no like room there, and I don't even want to leave that review really. And if I do, but because I just don't feel like anyone's going to listen to it. But if I were to give that feedback to you, I would feel 100% sure that you would actually hear it and listen. And again, obviously, I know not everything relies on what my personal feedback is, but you're going to take that into account. And there's more of a chance of something being done about it than like, especially when you do have to put like $1,000 or 1,000 product like MOQ on there. You're like, yeah, well, too bad. Like, we're not changing this product.
Yeah, I mean, it depends for sure. Like a lot of the times you're like, that is only going to make it better, and it's a minimal investment, and even if only a small percentage of people appreciate it, why not? We always kind of strive to make the best things that we can. Obviously, there's realities where you can't like do everything, so you're always kind of weighing those pros and cons. But I think like back when I was doing my design job, I was really heavy in design research and kind of those more like just listening to people, see how they're using products, and really like, yes, I wanted this product. It's important for me that like I like everything that we make. But I will say, like, sometimes when we're designing things, the thing I like the most isn't what we make, or just because it's it's more than just me now. And I really feel like I'm building Campo in service to our customers. So that, we really do like really invite all that input, and we see it as dialogue and not like just criticism,
For sure.
That's super important. And what you mentioned about not everything you make is what you exactly like want or love. It's kind of like writers or anything, like kill your darlings, right? You're like, okay, well, this is for a bigger cause. It's not just about me. I can't think about only what I want and what I need now, because I have grown this business for other people and for what they need. And now I have to like take those things into account. And speaking of that, how did you get started selling the bags? Were you like doing little we mentioned like farmers market type fairs, things like that, or into stores, or just online? How did that part all start?
We did. We started with just wholesale, and I think this is partly partly the time, like selling, you could sell online for sure. But like in 2008, 2009, like social media was just getting started. Like Shopify, I don't think existed yet or barely, you know? And I think also with me and my co-founder, like neither of us are really extroverts. So the thought of like spending our weekends at fairs talking to people was like, no. I'd be too tired to go to work on Monday if that's the case, you know? And then also knowing that we didn't want to produce the bags ourselves. So it was always going to be kind of like we would need to sell volume, you know? Right. It's not like we were going to sell 10 and then make 10 during the week and then sell another 10 the next weekend. That was never kind of like what we were thinking, you know? And so I was, it always felt like, oh, we need to get in stores because stores will buy like 10 at a time. And if we're making a minimum of 100, we'll want to place most, you know, sell through that, you know? And so in the beginning, I had those first prototypes from the Lees. We made like a little catalog and I totally just went door to door to bike stores, you know, like open the door, who here buys things, you know, kind of do the little demo, you know? And the bags were so different that we sold our first production run very quickly, you know, and it was very exciting. So like we got into like 15 bike stores in Chicago and like not every place I went into said yes, but I felt like I had a pretty good rate, you know, at least like half the stores said yes. So we were super stoked, you know, and then we dropped off the bags and then I was like ready for the reorders, you know, and like checked in a month later and hardly any bags had sold, if any, you know, it might've been. And I was like, oh no, you know, and 2 months later, similar thing. And then people asking them if they can give them back and get their money back, you know? And so it was really awful. The reason what they kept saying was just sticker shock, you know, like you can get a handlebar bag, just your basic black one for, I don't know, $30, $40. And the one that we were selling was like $80. Now for like the comparable handbag made in USA, you know, whatever, it totally felt like the right price, but just in this store's context, it felt way too splurgy, you know, and people like, oh, maybe for my birthday. I mean, that's always like a warning sign that that's, you know, and also the stores then, and still kind of like this a lot, bike stores, they're really more like mechanic shops than like retail environments. So like some of the bags would have like greasy fingerprints on them. Bike stores were also not like the most welcoming to women. I also feel like the industry has really made an effort to change this, but then for sure it was like you go if you have a problem, you know, like you need flat fixed or your brakes aren't working and you're like in and out as quick as possible, because the longer you were in there, like higher chance of some kind of like sexist comment was going to be thrown your way or whatever, you know? So it wasn't like the right kind of like shopping environment where you'd be like, oh, let me see what you guys have. Oh, I like this, you know? It just wasn't that kind of environment. So it was like a real reality check where like, oh, we're super proud of our products. We really feel like there's potential for something like this, but it is not working in this retail setting. And then we sold them into like gift stores, thinking that would be another one. But then it was like, they were saying, oh, people are confused now because they like this bag. And then they're like, oh, wait, it's a handlebar bag? What? Oh, I'm, you know, and the like confusion, you put it back, you know, I don't know what this is, you know? And so that was really like the first year and a half was kind of like that. Like we did simplified versions of the bags to bring the price down, but then it still kind of felt like too much money for now this simpler bag. We added things to the bags to help justify them. You know, it was like just trying to like test all these different things. And then finally for one, so this might've been like after 2 years or the second year, we're like, let's just like reduce the price as low as we can to see, is it actually the price? Because sometimes I felt I was worried that people were saying, oh, it's the price, because that's not criticism you can take personally, you know, like, but what if it's not the price? What if they actually don't like the product, you know? So for like a month during spring, we like brought the price down to like basically what we were paying for it, just to see like, will they start selling now? And they totally did. Like we got our first reorders. We did have a very rudimentary website that people were buying from. And then I was like, okay, it's totally the price. We need to drop our price by like half, which means we need to drop our cost, by at least half, which means making in the U.S. is just not feasible. And so the fact that we're working with helped us transition to a factory in China that she knew. And then that kind of got us onto this path that we're on today.
And is that, are you still in a lot of wholesale stores or mostly direct to consumer from your website?
We still do everything. So we sell on our website, we sell on Amazon, and we sell on wholesale. Amazon's our biggest right now, but all the channels are growing really well, and we are seeing a lot of growth in wholesale. I think Campo is so perfect for e-bikes because, with an e-bike, weight doesn't matter anymore. So, I mean, it's such a change. And so when you have your e-bike, like you kind of want to carry things on it. Like you want to bring your kids, you want to bring your pets, you want to go grocery shopping, whatever, go for a big picnic, load it all up. I know I feel this way. And with our e-bikes now, we go away for the weekend. We're just like, throw it on there.
Yeah, totally.
Stop and get a watermelon. Who cares? And so it really feels like now people are like looking for, ways to help them carry things. A lot of people like, having the pockets, the convertibility, so you can take it off your bike and carry it. Like it's such a perfect fit for the e-bike customer. And we're seeing in a lot of wholesale that they're selling a lot of e-bikes, and that the e-bike people love accessories to because they want to keep using their bikes for different things, And so with our wholesale accounts, we're really seeing like the stores that do a good business with e-bikes are also our best Campo stores. And we have also seen like a lot of people bought bikes during the pandemic, and you don't need a new bike every year. I know some people buy a bike probably almost every year, but you don't, bikes last for a while. But every spring you kind of want to like freshen it up, get some new things for your bike, And so a lot of bike stores now that bike sales are slowing or have slowed since then, that they do see accessories as growing categories and ways to get people back into the store more regularly. So, all of our channels are growing really healthy right now, which is such an exciting place to be and so perfect for our 15th year anniversary. It's like the best gift I could have asked for.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I don't know if we mentioned when you first said that you had just celebrated your 15th, but like huge congratulations. That's
thank you.
Big.
I know, it's such a huge. I was a little crazy because that seems like a really long time when I say it, but it's still like it's still so interesting. Like every growth stage presents new, I'll say, learning opportunities, and so definitely haven't tired of it yet and still feel like there's so much room to grow and good things to do.
When was it that you transitioned from your full-time? Is Campo, I imagine now it is your full-time everything.
It is. Yeah. After like 3 years, I quit my full-time job. But it was still after that quite maybe another 5 years before I was really taking a salary, like a normal one. So I was doing like freelance work. I was adjunct teaching, just kind of like making ends meet really. But really feeling like I needed just some more time to like work on the business and have that flexibility where I wouldn't be like sitting at another job, from whatever 9 to 6. And I'm the type of worker where like, I want to do a really good job, so like if somebody's paying me to do this job, I'm going to give it my all, and I just felt like I couldn't do that all day and then have enough energy at night and on the weekends. And then just so much stuff happens during the day, like I can't call on stores at night,
Right.
And so
yep.
I did feel like once we kind of moved production to Asia, we got in, like we did a test with REI and Title IX. I was like, okay, here we go, time to ramp up, and it felt like the right time to take it more seriously and make it my main thing.
I love it. And I mean, I love to hear that, it took five or plus years before it was your full, like, okay, this is my salary. This is something, I expect this amount of money coming in each month from it, because again, in our instant gratification society and things like social media and influencers and shit just happens overnight. It seems miraculous. And, you've been in business 15 years, but you said like 5 or more of those years was of you still kind of hustling it on the side and not being fully able to rely on it. and that's just something we need to remember, that things still take time, and 15 years is a long time, but it took a while before it was your full thing. And it's something I need to remind myself a lot of, is like, okay, if things don't happen in just 1 year, that doesn't mean just, okay, that's it, quit. Like, it still takes years. Like Heather of Heather's Choice, she is at 10 years and still making huge strides, but businesses are hard, especially small businesses. These big brands also went through these years of uncertainty and still go through that. But it's just important for, I think, everyone out there to remember, if you are doing something on the side or have dreams of starting your own thing, it might take a few years. It might take 5, it might take 10 before you're like, wow, okay, this is it. And I feel like for a lot of our audience who are around mine and Amber's age, it feels like you don't have that time anymore. So if you are starting something new and you're like, well, 5 years maybe until I'm like settled in this, like I'm going to be this age then. And so just, especially as women, it just feels like we don't have that time. It has to happen now. And it doesn't have to happen right now. There is time. And we just have to remind ourselves that and believe in that. And if it's truly something, you believe in and want to work, you just have to keep working at it. And it might be really fucking hard. You might be working side jobs. You might be sacrificing some things in your life that can afford you the flexibility to work on this, especially knowing yourself. I'm similar to you as far as like, I like to do a very good job. So when I'm working for someone else, I'm not able to put much other energy into other things. So I come into a lot of inner conflict of how much do I give to someone else when I'm trying to do something over here myself. Like, how do you find the balance? And it takes a lot of inner work and time to figure that out. And again, though, and also in life, to be able to get to the situation where you have the flexibility of, I can put time and effort into this to grow it. Not everyone has that, kind of privilege to be able to not work full time for someone else to get something going. But you have worked very hard to get there, and obviously seemed to work very hard in the industry you were in beforehand, and had all this knowledge that you were able to transfer over to Campo. And 15 years now, here you are, still growing and learning. And I think that you mentioning, just continuing to learn from the process is a huge thing too. You're not just like, hey, nope, I've done it now for 15 years. And so we've got it settled and this is it. Like, you're still open to many things. That's amazing.
Yeah. Thank you.
Before we get out of here, is there anything you would like to leave to the audience, like best places to find you, any special Campo things going on, whether that's like sales, new releases, just whatever you want to mention to the people? Give them.
Do you know
that
when
info.
this will go live roughly?
Next Thursday. So it's the 12th now. Whatever, this 19th or 18th or something.
I guess the main thing I would love a follow on Instagram. We're at Campo Bags. And then I think that'd be my main call to action, as we say. But we do have a new product launching for the kiddos at the end of July. And our kids line is now like a third of our business. And I'm really like, our kind of two little niches are for customers is women in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. And I say that instead of middle age because I think middle age just sounds too bad or negative. But for you guys, I mean, it took us a little, now that we've embraced this consumer cohort, it is the most inspiring group of women, and I think I used to feel also like, oh my God, I'm in like my late 40s now. But now it's just seeing how so many of these women have really treated this stage of their life as like an exciting new chapter, changing careers. One of our customers is like studying to be a private investigator now, like just like kind of crazy stuff. Or doing great traveling or like starting a band. I mean, it's just really an inspiring age range. And I think it's definitely that age range that is totally so quiet and like hidden from in the media and in culture. And I do feel like it's kind of like a personal agenda of mine to really like, I think like we start to hear about the bad things around menopause, but I'm like, but that just based on what I know from our customers, this also can be a very exciting time. Okay, so we have that. And then we also have women with young kids. And our tagline now is with you for the ride. And we think of it like on the bicycle, of course, but then also with you for the ride of life, because both of those life stages, young kids and middle age, everything has changed, you know, like what you knew before this is like gone, you know, either your body is totally changing or your day-to-day life is totally different. And we have found like biking can really help people kind of just like work through this new stage. And I love kind of focusing on those two and really supporting and celebrating women during those different stages. Just because I feel like in culture and media, it's kind of hidden or you're really boxed into something. And with our relationships with our customers, like those is not really accurate. So, so going back to product launch, for if anybody listening has some young kiddos, we have a new exciting new product launching at the end of July, beginning of August for them.
That's amazing, because I will tell you, I was just in Washington with my niece and nephew, and my nephew's still on a strider, but he's got his pedal bike. He's ready to start pedaling. My niece is pedaling away, and she loves to pick up flowers and stuff. So I had tied a flower to her handlebar, and then we were sitting on this bridge. So I went to my phone and I was looking up Campo for kid bike bags, because I was like, I need to get something for her birthday to put on her handlebars so she can start putting things in there. But I was like, I better check with the parents first, because she might be coming home every day with a bag full of rocks now that she's trying to bring home.
Like that's what, like when we were doing the research for this, like what did kids carry? And it's like rocks and sticks and pine cones, you know? So all the kids line, it's like, this is the dump area for all of that, because otherwise like mom and dad have to put it in their pockets. And so it's totally like help me. Kids can carry their own stuff, you know?
Yep. Yeah. And she doesn't have a water bottle like holder on her bike or even a mount for it or anything. And this last week we'd get to our destination, 5 minutes down the road. She's like, water. I'm like, we need to put your water bottle in something. So I'm excited to see what this launch is for sure. Her birthday's in September. So it'll be a great birthday gift for her, because you can still bike plenty there's plenty more time to bike in the fall in Washington, especially where they are and what they do, just biking down the road for a short amount of time at these ages. So I'm personally really excited to see the kids launch.
Yeah, good. Me too.
Awesome. All right. Well, Maria, thank you so much for joining us today. As you all know, that in the Campo website, Instagram, all that will be linked in the show notes, and check them out. Find stuff, do up your bikes, make them fancy. I know I just put new grips on my mountain bike, and that felt like an up level. So having a cute bag, whether a handlebar, trunk bag, or whatever, that makes, I can't wait to get a gravel bike and decorate it with bags. I really can't. Awesome. Well, thanks again, Maria. And we will talk to you all out there very soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode and would do us a huge favor, since we don't have any sponsors or anything like that, and would rate and review us on whatever platform it is you use, Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, whatever it is. And if you're listening and downloading just through the website, tearingituppodcast.com, leave comments. We'll definitely engage back with you. And on social media right now, we're just on Instagram. Tearing It Up Podcast is the handle. Like the post, share the post, comment on the post, whatever it is you got. Show us your love so we just stay relevant and show up in the rankings at all. So again, rate and review, please. And we'll see you next time. Thanks.